Starting.
Yes.
This Hangout on Air is live. That's how you're doing it, Steve. You're going, yes, right when I say it. And you're the first picture. That's why YouTube keeps picking you.
It's by design.
Well, good evening, ladles and jelly spoons. I come before you to stand behind you to tell you something I know nothing about. This Thursday, which is Good Friday, there will be a mother's meeting for men only. Tickets are free, pay at the door. I forget how the rest of it goes. Has anybody ever heard that poem?
I've heard it from your dad.
Yeah. I had a book that had it in. I think I might still have that book. Anyway, we are live and direct, and coming up on show number 599, it is time for some roll call. Oh, wait. Look, it's a pumpkin. Steve, I think you need to come in here and show them how big that is. Come put your head beside that.
Yeah, for reference.
Yeah.
I've been told that my head is scarier, though.
Okay, wait. Before we do that, I want everybody to notice. Well, too late. We'll do that when he comes back. Let's see. Oh, Brett answered me, and
I'll have to maneuver in here.
All right. Don't disturb.
Ada.
Don't disturb Ada.
Real slowly.
Okay, I want you guys to see how big. This is a real pumpkin. This is not a fake pumpkin. Get your head down there beside it. Look at the size of that thing.
I think it weighed like 30 pounds.
Oh, that thing is nuts.
Before we carved it. It's huge.
All right, put the cap back.
Okay, yeah. Get your spot back.
All right, I'm going to do roll call till you get back in position so we can show off our flair. All right, let's see. We've got Steve Scaredy Cat. What is it? Steve and Brett and Kevin and Dan and Denise, George Multitask, Gino Choi, Joe LaGreca, John, Rose, and Sandy. And I got to go find Brett's answer. So they're trying to alert the car when the light is about to go green. We met with them about 2 weeks ago. Phone would have to know what direction you're going if you're turning or not to know what your specific light turns green. Oh, good point. You don't want everybody getting the green light and just punch it, huh? That's a good point. Well, hang on. They have sensors in the road that you drive over, right? Well, but only the front car. Well, no, maybe only need the front car to know when the light turns. All right, here's our flare. We voted today. Steve, show me your flare.
Here is my flare. It looks a lot like your flare.
And you copycatted me and wore a U.S. shirt, right? What is wrong with Kevin? Why is he saying SAP, SAP, SA? Oh, I bet that's his text expander snippet.
Oh. So I wonder what his snippet SA stands for. Save.
Yeah. Save a podcast? Yes, Denise, that is a NosillaCast mug. Did you know you can buy these fine mugs at our online store?
Nuris joined us.
Nuris, you haven't been here in forever. Nice to see you again. All right. Anybody else sneak in under the wire? Oh, and let the record show that I did... save pod feet, maybe. I did. Oh, she's saying, what? Online store? Yeah, I think under help the show. Let's see. Let's see if I go to Chrome. I think if you click the help the show button, isn't there a online store there?
You mean for pod feet items? NosillaCast items?
Yeah, isn't there?
There used to be. Don't know if it's
sure.
still there.
Pod feed? Hey, have you guys noticed Chrome is just starting to install plugins all by itself? I've had 3 plugins come up going, hey, I need to update. And I'm like, I never told you to install on this new install. Oh, a mug I shall buy. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Here's the link. You can buy shirts. You can buy clocks. What was it we didn't like? Something in there was silly. Oh, the shirt was real thin. I'm not sure I would go for that. But I've got the NosillaCast hat. You can get a giant pillow.
That clock right behind you?
Oh, yeah.
With the pod feet?
Wait, you need to stop talking. There it is.
That's it.
What is that noise? Is that Tesla?
Yeah. Oh, Tesla, come here.
All right. Okay. Yes, on Chrome. You've been seeing that too, huh? All right. We should start the show. It is 4 minutes after. All right, Steve, mute yourself up.
I'm muting. Goodbye.
Bye. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Macintosh bias. Today is Sunday, October 30th, 2016, and this is show number 599. Well, we've been building up to the 600th episode of the NosillaCast. But then I realized that next week, I'm going to be in an area with no internet access on the day of the live show. Heck, even Sandy won't be in town. So, why bother doing a live show then? So 2 things are going to happen. First of all, the show will be out early next week because, we never miss a show. I'm thinking probably Thursday. And there will be no live show on November 6th. So to everybody who likes to come to live show, don't show up on November 6th. So I won't even be able to go into the chat room to tell you why I'm not there because we're not going to have any internet. But here's the thing. I don't want to do a 600th show without a live audience. So I've decided to just skip over 600 and declare next week's show 601. Then the following week, I'll do a show 600. How's that to mess with your head? Now, I do have to confess that I stole this idea from the SMR podcast guys. They weren't all in town for episode 300, so they just skipped right past it. And they said they were going to come back and do it, but I'm pretty sure they forgot to ever come back and do episode 300. By the way, there is a way to keep track of when the live shows are. If you copy the link, I put it in the show notes here, but it's also at podfeed.com/live. You don't click on this link, copy it, and it goes to the Google Calendar for the NosillaCast. You can use it to subscribe inside your calendar of choice. It's a .ics link. Anyway, whenever I cancel a live show or I move it, you'll see that correctly in the calendar. Anyway, let's get on with show number 599. Speaking of messed up show numbers, this week's Chit Chat Across the Pond was episode 461, but you'll hear me say 460 in the show. I do not know why it's so hard for me to get the Chit Chat Across the Pond numbers right, but I mess it up probably every third week. In any case, it was a fun-filled episode with Bart Bouchatz, back with Programming by Stealth, installment 24, creating a JavaScript API. He also teaches us an easy way to create professional documentation in order to publish our work as a JavaScript library, because apparently we're going to have published work soon. In order to get there, though, we had to learn how to write reusable and shareable code, how closures help you keep your variables out of the global scope so they don't mess up other people's code. We learned one ternary operator, and my favorite, self-executing anonymous functions. If that sounds fun to you, check out Chit Chat Across the Pond, episode 461, and of course, the spectacular show notes over at bartbouchatz.ie. All right, that actually looks pretty good. Pretty good. Up. Save as. All right. Oh, somebody's highlighting. I think Podfeed's making up words. Like what? It's too loud. NC. There we go. What word did I make up? Quantum computing?
One ternary? Is that really a word?
One ternary.
One ternary.
One
like binary?
Ternary. Yes.
How about unitary or something that makes more sense?
We talk about that. It's ternary. It's got 3.
But unitary is like one ternary, right? Binary, unitary.
What?
That's a real word. I think you're making up words.
No. Bart's making up words.
All right, I have to have a talk.
Hi, this is Allison. You have to have a talk. Well, why don't you listen to the episode?
Oh, all right.
Yeah, no, you're not going to. All right. Okay, we need a blog post here. Let's bring up, not that one. That one. All right. Now, people have suggested that my blog post about the 7 Plus portrait mode is just an excuse to have pictures of Forbes showing, but I don't know how they could possibly say that. Hey, who just snuck in? Landon, you're late for class. You know what that means? You're buying next week. Wait, not next week. You can't buy for 2 weeks. No live show this coming week. All right, here we go. This week, Apple released iOS 10.1, which included the beta of the new portrait mode for the iPhone 7 Plus. Portrait mode made out. What? I'm stopping for 2 reasons. Oh, because I didn't understand what I wrote. And secondly, I could hear you a little bit there, Steve. Don't forget to mute.
Oops, sorry about that.
Yeah, sure. All right. This week, Apple released iOS 10.1, which included the beta of the new portrait mode for the iPhone 7 Plus. Portrait mode applies what they call a depth effect, blurring things in the background while keeping the focus sharp on faces in the foreground. The effect is limited to the 7 Plus because it uses the dual cameras to produce this effect, 2 lenses and a lot of math. I'm a huge fan of portrait photography, so this effect was a big contributor to my decision to go with the 7 Plus. Spoiler, I love portrait mode. I've taken dozens of portraits so far of adults and children, and the crisp focus on people's faces really makes them pop out of the photos. Like the HDR mode on iPhones, you get 2 copies of every photo. One is a normal image, and the second has the depth effect. Having the two side by side really highlights the advantages of using portrait mode, and it's kind of fun to flick back and forth and see what changed. For example, I took a shot of my grandson Forbes in Lindsay's arms. In the normal shot, there's this stupid outlet just to the left of his head that really distracts from his adorable face. The depth effect image blurs that stupid outlet, so it looks a lot better. Another example was when I took a shot of Steve outside when I was testing, and I didn't notice that there was a leaf from a tree sticking out from behind his head. In the normal shot, it looks terrible, definitely a throwaway shot, but with the blurred background in the portrait shot, it's not actually distracting. Now, when you start to take a photo in portrait mode, you'll get some on-screen clues of what to do. If you're the correct distance from your subjects, subject or subjects, it can find any faces in view. Portrait mode will put a little box around those faces and try to focus on them. If you're too close to your subjects, it will say, move farther away, or place subject within 8 feet if you're too far away. Portrait mode will also tell you if it's too dark to pull off the effect. Also of note is that it uses the smaller field of view of the zoom lens, which is 56 millimeter equivalent, but we're so used to the wide angle lens that it feels like you're way zoomed up. So you'll start to take a picture and you go, ooh, I got to back up. One of the immediate temptations is to test this mode on something other than faces. Now, they told you it's beta and it works on faces, but that's not what you're going to do. Now, remember I said it takes a lot of math to pull this off, right? Well, that math includes focusing on the eyes, nose, and the mouth of humans. So, of course, I took a picture of our dog Tessa first thing. I thought it worked surprisingly well. Then I tested it on a creepy Halloween doll sitting next to this creepier rat. The doll was focused appropriately, but the rat had too much depth to his face for the math to work properly. Now remember, this is not designed for rats, dogs, or dolls, but the doll actually had a face, so I think that's why it worked pretty well. I was pleased with the depth effect from portrait mode, but I thought it might be fun to do a direct comparison to an equivalent lens on a DSLR. Now, a true portrait lens is the 35 millimeter equivalent of 90 to 130 millimeter. But that lens size would be distinctly different from the field of view that we're going to get from the iPhone. And I wanted to get as close as I could to that iPhone's lens as possible. So I borrowed Lindsay's Nikon D40 DSLR and her 50 millimeter f1.8 lens. I knew that the iPhone's 56 millimeter lens was f2.2, so I put her camera in aperture priority and set it to f2.2. So I figured these would be pretty close, 50 millimeter equivalent and 56 millimeter equivalent, both set to f2.2. I chose Steve as my subject and put him in front of some ivy and a white garage door. He was wearing a white and gray shirt, and we made sure he wasn't in bright sunlight. I took several photos and got 2, one on each camera, that were framed just about the same. The first interesting observation was that the lens information from the iPhone 7 Plus image was not what I thought it would be. Remember, I told you it was a 56 millimeter lens, f2.2. Apple creates this depth effect using both of its lenses, and when it combines them, the resulting image, at least in this example, turned out to be f2.8 and 57 millimeters, not 56. In other portrait mode images I took, the f-stop and equivalent focal length were distinctly different. Interesting, but I figured this would still be close enough for me to compare to the DSLR. I opened the images from the 2 cameras and adjusted the exposure, saturation, and aspect ratios until they were comparable, cropping one of them so they looked about the same. I didn't want those things to distract in a direct comparison. So I put the 2 images in the show notes, and you can click on them to see them in full resolution. Then I enlisted a few of my photography buddies to look at these 2 images. I told them I preferred they not look at the EXIF data to learn anything about the images, but to tell me which camera took which photo and to critique the 2. Bart Bouchat, Stephen Getz, Alistair Jenks, Mark Pauly, and Victor Cahill all jumped in to talk about the comparison of the photos. Because they're photographers, they all explained up front that they could easily tell which camera took which photo. And after they pointed out, now I can see it a mile away too. Bart explained it really well. He said that while the background blur from the iPhone 7 Plus is very pleasing, on a real lens-created blur, anything bright in the background should look like a large, out-of-focus version of whatever shape the lens aperture has. Once he said that, I remembered seeing blurred out Christmas lights that looked like hexagons. Now, when I look at the two cameras' images, I can clearly see that the one with the flatter blur is from the iPhone, and the one from the DSLR, you can see these little tiny hexagons. Well, Bart did some serious pixel peeping, and he pointed out several areas where you could tell the errors in the math from the iPhone. There's a couple of spots where Steve's white shirt is against a bright leaf, and it has a small distortion right at those connection points. Another thing he noticed, and the other guy said, wow, that is pretty obvious once you point it out, his beard isn't all in focus, even though it's the same distance from the camera as say, his eyes. So it didn't quite pick that up correctly. There's also a vertical gutter that goes down behind his head, and it's oddly in focus between, say, his ear and his neck. So above, it's out of focus, but between his ear and his neck, it's not in focus. So once you notice that, you're like, wow, that looks really weird. But again, I didn't notice any of these right off. From these criticisms, you think the iPhone 7 Plus image looked awful, but Bart and the others did say that it took some looking to be that critical. They said the effect was surprisingly well done. Now, remember, this is in beta, and for a first cut, it's pretty astonishing. After talking to the guys, I took a more critical eye to the photos I'd taken earlier, and I could see the same kind of small imperfections in them too. I noticed the main place you can see it seems to make mistakes is with hair. Often the edges, around the edges of somebody's head, their hair will be out of focus when other parts of their face should be in focus. If you're hearing this and not reading it in the blog, I've put quite a few images in the blog post, including the full resolution versions I mentioned of the DSLR comparison of Steve, so you can see that effect for yourself. Bottom line, I am thrilled with the new portrait mode depth effect because it creates images that highlight the faces of the people I love. The iPhone 7 Plus is now the favorite camera I own. There we go.
So you're going to throw out your mirrorless camera?
Yeah, no, I actually spent a bunch of time taking portraits of some friends with my good camera just yesterday. So, nope.
So one comment, could you shift a little to your right? You're blocking Mr. Pumpkin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually noticing I was having trouble reading. I was kind of sitting around. I think I did that when you were in there.
Thank you.
Sorry. Was it you who had that comment?
Well, yeah.
Wait, if Allison's head can block the pumpkin.
What does that say?
The comparison with Steve's head. What does it say about the size of Allison's head? It says that you need help understanding depth perception.
Perspective.
Yeah, perspective, same thing.
Mr. Pumpkin TW. Oh, for the win, yes.
No, for the win. I thought he was going for a TM. Steve always calls things like Mr. Pumpkin. He's got Mr. Pumpkin. He's got Mr. Ghost. He has Mr. Squirrel in the yard. And one year, a friend of ours wanted to park in our driveway and asked Steve, is it okay if I park in Mr. Driveway? I gave him again. That was funny.
Now, one thing we have to mention is that Mr. Ghost kind of...
Don't say it. Don't say it, Steve.
Gave up the ghost. His fan went bad. It's one of those inflatable ghosts. So we had to get a new one, and I think this is Mrs. Ghost.
Yep, it's Mrs. Ghost.
Yeah.
All right. We're talking about the quick take camera. What? The opening of the pocket. It's Halloween. The Bach Toccata Ned Fugue in D minor. Ooh, what's that one? Is that classic one they play on a pipe organ that with the really impending doom music? Mr. Ghost has dead batteries. Good.
Okay, right. Here come the puns.
Yep. All right, mute, dear.
I guess I did start. Okay, muting.
Bye-bye. As I'm sure you've all heard, Apple updated the MacBook Pro line this week. The big excitement is that they've replaced the function keys with an OLED touchscreen they've named Touch Bar. They added Touch ID to the right side of the touch bar as well. They got rid of the mechanical trackpad, replacing it with a Force Touch trackpad that's twice as big as the old one. Well, I guess the most recent one did have a touch trackpad, but it was kind of crammed into the same size as the old mechanical one, so now they've got the great big one. The list goes on and on of all the improvements they've made. I'm not going to go through everything, but I'd like to walk through some of these improvements. Specifically, I want to talk about the 15-inch model and give you my take on these improvements. I'd like to start with the price, because I'm hearing a lot of complaints about that. I dug out my receipt for my late 2013 MacBook Pro. By the way, I keep all my receipts and images of my items in home inventory from binary formations, if you're interested. And I wanted to do a comparison to today's price. My philosophy with computers has always been to buy the second to the top of the line. If there's just three choices, I always take the middle one. But a lot of times what you'll find is that last little boost you get of maybe 1 to 2/10 of a gigahertz and maybe a smidge more in graphics always costs way more than I think it's worth. So in 2013, I bought the 2.3 gigahertz Intel Core i7. I could have gone for 2.6 gigahertz, but instead I bumped the RAM up to 16 gig and the SSD to 1 terabyte. The second to the top of the line MacBook Pro cost me $3,099 before tip and tax and AppleCare. 3 years later, the 2016 MacBook Pro in the second to the top of the line configuration with 16 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD is $29.99 before tip and tax and AppleCare. So this model is $100 cheaper than the same configuration in 2013. Now, I don't want you to think I'm implying by any means that this is an inexpensive computer. You're talking to a woman who paid $2,800 for her first car. So this is an expensive computer, but it's less expensive than it was 3 years ago. And that's without taking inflation into account. But here's the problem. They offered a 2 terabyte disk option, and Steve said I should go for it. Well, I wasn't going to do it, but there he was egging me on. What could I do? And then I realized later, remember the long drawn out saga I had of how I moved my photos library off disk onto an external SSD because they no longer fit on my 1 terabyte internal drive? Well, they're coming back on board now. So I actually, after I did the nuke and pave, it turns out I have a lot of free disk space. It's amazing. Out of a 1 terabyte drive, I have 700 gigabytes free right now. So I thought, all right, maybe I'll migrate my photos back right now before I get the new machine. And since I just did a nuke and pave, I don't feel bad about doing Migration Assistant. But I moved the photos back, and then I told Photos, okay, make this my system photo library. And it said, yeah, you don't have enough disk space on this machine to make this your system photo library with the originals. You need to do optimized photos. And luckily, I'd heard that this could happen on Dave Hamilton's, and Dave Hamilton was talking about it on the Mac Geek Gab with John F. Braun. Somebody wrote in about it, and he said, yeah, you got to tell it to optimize because it thinks you're moving photos in. It's not smart enough somehow to notice that they're already there, which makes zero sense to me. So for the past 3 days, I have been yet again migrating all of my data up to the cloud again, or back down from the cloud. I don't know, making optimized images locally. So it's actually about, I think it's maybe close to 100 gigabytes free of my 460 gigabytes. So hopefully by the time I go on my trip, it'll be done doing that. And then guess what I have to do? I have to tell it to bring the full size images back. So anyway, I'm getting all that done before the new machine gets here. All right. But enough talking about the price and the 2 terabyte drive. Let's talk about what this Mac has to offer and talk through whether maybe it might be something you want. First of all, people love to talk about ports. If there's one, they want 2. If they get 2, they say it's the wrong 2. If they take one away, everybody gets angry. It makes sense though, because what you need is what you need, right? It's what you need. That's what actually matters. It doesn't matter whether I need that. It matters whether you need it. In the older MacBook Pros, we had a plethora of ports. The 2013 had 2 Thunderbolt ports, 2 USB, 1 MagSafe power port, and an HDMI port, a headphone jack, and an SD card slot. Well, the new MacBook Pro has 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. That's a port that is the size and shape of USB-C, and it's actually, Dave Hamilton put this well on another episode of the show. He said that think about Thunderbolt 3 ports as being like PCIe slots in an old PC where you could add cards to it. So we'll get more to what we're going to do with that later. But anyway, the new MacBook Pro has 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports and a headphone jack, and that's it. Now that might sound bad to you, but let's think about this. On the 2013, I never once used the HDMI port. In fact, I didn't even know it was there for over a year after I had it until somebody pointed it out. Shows you how much I pay attention. It took up space internally and in thickness, and it never provided me any value. But maybe you really needed HDMI, and it was the most valuable port on your Mac. Well, with the 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports on the new model, you can make them into anything you want. Just like those PCIe slots, you can add anything you want. If you want it to be 4 USB-A ports, you can do that. If you want power on the right-hand side of your laptop instead of the left-hand side, these ports can do that. If you want a USB hub, an SD card reader, a Thunderbolt display, and Ethernet, you can have that. It is completely configurable to what you need and want. Now, this comes at a price, of course, and that's in the purchase and use of dongles. At $25 to $30 each, this can start to add up. But let's say you need the configuration we just described, and tomorrow you need them to be all 4 USB-A ports. With enough dongles, you can make that happen where you couldn't before. I think the flexibility outweighs the dongle tax. Let's talk about the trackpad. I'm a huge fan of the Force Touch trackpad in the MacBook. On the traditional trackpads, clicking on them just really bugged me. I don't know if it's because I felt like that mechanical switch was going to wear out like it did on one of my external Apple trackpads, or if it was just the sound, but I hated it. The first thing I would do with the new Mac was to turn on 2-finger tap to select. But with the Force Touch trackpad on the MacBook, the 12-inch MacBook I'm talking about, the one I bought last year, it's a delight to click. If you haven't ever played with Force Touch trackpads, it's really pretty magical. One of my favorite party tricks is to let someone click away on it while I power down the Mac. They're always astonished when the power finally goes off and the trackpad stops clicking. It's unbelievable that it's not actually a mechanical click. It's really amazing. It's fun to do to people. So here's another big seller for the Force Touch trackpad. A classic failure of the Mac notebooks is the trackpad is if the battery starts to swell. I had seen that happen to other people, and of course it happened to mine just last month. Maybe it's a good thing, though, as an early warning system about the battery. I don't know. I have to think about that. Well, I'm not sure why the trackpads are so much bigger, though. The external Magic Trackpad from Apple is huge compared to the older mechanical one, and I love it. So I guess having a bigger trackpad in the MacBook Pro will be good, too. I'm just not sure why it needs to be bigger, but it works well being big on the ones I've seen. One thing I never liked about the 2013 MacBook Pro was the distance from the keys to the edge of the laptop where your wrist rests. It was just short enough that my watch always caught on the edge or scratched around on the surface and kind of bugged my wrist. With my traditional elegant watches, I always had to take them off to use the MacBook Pro in my lap. The MacBook is small enough that it never bugged me at all, even with a much bigger Apple Watch. I'm curious about the dimensions on the new MacBook Pro. I really hope it's smaller so my watch doesn't scratch on it. Maybe this is just me, but a couple of people answered on the blog that they thought they had the same problem. Now, the keyboard on the new MacBook Pro is the second generation of the butterfly keys. I've kind of a love-hate relationship with the first-gen butterfly keys on the 12-inch MacBook. It's part of why the MacBook is so thin and light, and the keys are low stress on my hands, so that's all good. But I definitely have more typos with the MacBook than I do with the Magic Keyboard I use with my MacBook Pro when it's on my desk. The Magic Keyboard is my favorite keyboard of all time. Of any Mac keyboard or PC keyboard I have ever owned, the Magic Keyboard is the one I like the best. So I'm hopeful that the second generation butterfly keys will be more accurate for touch typists, but I don't know. Might be still worth it. We'll see. Now, the only thing you interact with more on a laptop, if you're sighted, than the keyboard is the display. The new MacBook Pro display is supposed to be 67% brighter, have a 67% higher contrast ratio, and have a color depth increase of 25%. Now, I don't know if I'm going to notice the last two, but brighter is always better for me. The brighter a display, the more your pupils contract, and the smaller your pupils are, the deeper the depth of field of your vision, which means it's easier to focus. Now, if you're in your 20s or 30s, this will be completely meaningless to you. But as your close vision declines in your 40s and beyond, this is a big deal. I found I only needed reading glasses at work at first because I was using this really cruddy HP laptop plugged into a 10-year-old Apple display that was well past its prime, and it was so dark it didn't light up and make my pupils contract. I'd come home to my beautiful 27-inch Apple Cinema display, and my eyes would focus much more easily. So anyway, a brighter screen to me is a better thing. Now, I'm very happy about the reduced size of the new MacBook Pro. It's 14% thinner, has 20% less volume, and is a half a pound lighter at 4 pounds. That's 11% for anybody who's counting. So 11% lighter as well. Now, my MacBook, 12-inch MacBook is only 2 pounds, so the MacBook Pro is still going to feel like a beast, but every little bit helps. Heck, Steve's MacBook Air feels really heavy compared to my MacBook. I hate to say that. I also like that there's a new form factor for no other reason than it's new, you know? You know how they change a perfectly functional car's external design just will be different from the previous year? The same thing applies to computers for me. Everyone has gray. Let's make them black and charge extra. Black is common. How about white? Oh, white is hard to make. Let's call the new color space gray to get them to buy it again. Yep, take my money. And finally, there's the touch bar. Or I'm sure it's touch bar, not the touch bar, right? Well, anyway, in the demos, they showed how developers could create contextual functionality in touch bar, which looked pretty cool. I was really glad to see a demo of Photoshop with touch bar, even though I'm not a Photoshop user myself. I heard them say Affinity Designer was going to have touch bar support, but I didn't hear Affinity Photo for some reason. I'm hoping that they will. But if you didn't see the demo, it was pretty cool. The woman had her finger on a slider that was on touch bar, and she was changing the size of a brush in Photoshop real time with touch bar. So that was pretty cool. Now, demos are great, but what are the developers saying about touch bar? AgileBits, makers of 1Password, are super excited about touch bar in the integrated Touch ID. They did a blog post with a little video showing how Touch ID on a laptop could open your vaults just like on iPhone. Now that's magic right there. I actually use my iPhone for banking because it's so much faster to use Touch ID than to type in my long password. AgileBits also created some screenshots of their first ideas of how Touch Bar could mutate while you're using 1Password. I guess the word's adapt, but I like mutate better. Imagine being able to flip vaults with Touch Bar, or drag a slider on that OLED screen to change generated password lengths. I'll let you read the article yourself. Of course, there's a link in the show notes, but their enthusiasm got me even more excited that developers are going to adapt and adopt the touch bar into their applications. Now, one question a few people have asked on Twitter, including Buddy Brannon, is how will touch bar be accessible to the blind? Now, it's not a big leap to see that Apple could make it as accessible as the iPhone and iPad screens, but there's one problem. In order to turn on VoiceOver on a Mac to make it accessible, you have to hit Command F5. Well, if F5 is a visual button and not physical, how do you find it without sight? Well, a great resource for the blind is the website AppleViz, and of course they have the answer. They reported that Apple has confirmed that Touch Bar will be accessible, and to enable or disable VoiceOver on Touch Bar-equipped MacBook Pro devices, you hold down the Command key and triple tap the Touch ID button. So they've got it all figured out. Now, bottom line is, I think there's a lot to be excited about in the new MacBook Pros, and I'm super excited to try it out in November when they get into our grubby, hot little hands. That was a long one to go without stopping.
So we had a couple people join us. Nick from New Zealand and Dorothy.
Who from New Zealand? Nick. Hey, Nick, how you doing? Everybody asked Nick how he liked being taken out to lunch at, where did we go? Denny's? Nick was here from New Zealand. We went out to, was it Denny's?
Yes.
I think it was. Oh, Dan, your bank doesn't support Touch ID? That's terrible. All right. Nick and Dorothy have to help Landon buy drinks in 2 weeks, okay? By the way, Steve, show 600 will be in at Lindsay's house.
Really?
Yeah, because we'll be taking care of Forbes.
I thought we were delaying it so he would be home.
We're delaying it from when we're going to be in Zion.
Zion. Oh.
Yeah, we're going to be in Zion with no internet. We'll be at Lindsay's with internet. We've done a live show there before.
We're going into the Matrix.
What? Oh, is that what it's called?
I think that was their place of refuge.
It was called Zion, really?
I think so. It was in one of the later matrices.
Do we know she not only didn't stop and didn't blink, she isn't breathing? Is he talking about me? I did go a long ways, didn't I? Oh, I could show people the, well, they can go look at it. Where am I? Okay. We're actually almost done. I'm going to get to play a little bit of security bits probably to entertain you guys at the end here. All right. You did, Steve? Kevin, please protect Steve when I can't monitor him online. Please, Podfeet. Actually, you can write to Dean Elger for that. He's what is that card he gave you, Steve? Your bro card or something?
I'm sorry?
What was the card that Dean gave you to carry in your wallet?
Man card.
Man card. He gave Steve an official man card. Actually, it's expired, I think, isn't it?
It is. I haven't got it renewed.
You have it in your wallet right now? Because you got to make sure you bring that when we go to Zion.
Yeah, good point. I'll put that on my Wonderlist list.
There you go. Because you need to go get it renewed.
Yeah, because without it,
Are you going to show it to them?
I don't know if I got to see if I can find it.
Uh-oh.
I better have it so I can get it renewed.
Your snail mail address. Oh, yeah. All right. Did you find it?
Not yet. Oh, this is not good.
I don't know if I can renew it
without the original. Oh,
yeah. Did you find it? Wow, this is good video. Even better audio for Nurse and Dan, I bet. Steve.
Yes.
Are you paying attention?
I think this is it.
Well, it's pretty obvious. It says man card on it. How many do you have? Okay, I'll stop talking. Wait, let me focus it on you. Hang on.
I might have to read that.
Okay, official. Oh, it's the Illinois one, and it expired in 2010. It's signed by Clint Eastwood. Let it be known that the bearer of this card is in good standing in the eyes of the fellow brethren of the never-ending struggle to remain a guy. Signed by Clint Eastwood.
I guess it's a guy card.
But that's the Illinois one.
Yeah, he was in Chicago.
I know, but Dean doesn't. I don't know whether he has them for.
Oh, good point. We may have to get
Utah.
Different cards.
All right. All right. Oh, we didn't lose another. Oh. Okay. All right. Mute, dear.
Oh, am I making noise again?
Shh. Be very, very quiet. All right. Oh, wait. It's on you, though. No one wants to look at that. There we go. All right. Back over here. We used to take advertising here over at the Podfeet Podcast Network. I just made that up. Anyway, but a while ago, I stopped using ads in favor of a couple other methods. If you find value in the show and you can afford it, you could pledge an amount for each NosillaCast that I publish. We do this through a service called Patreon, and you can sign up at podfeet.com/Patreon. I want to give a big shout out to our newest patrons. I'm not sure if this is Jamie or Jaime Harris, Doug Ingram, Ricky Rodriguez, and Desmond for their support of the show. Now, if you haven't got extra change lying around, I totally understand that. As the holiday shopping season is upon us, though, you're probably going to do some shopping at Amazon, right? If you could go to podfeet.com first and click on the Amazon logo in the left sidebar to get to Amazon, then a small percentage of what you spend will go to help the show, and it won't cost you an extra dime. I really appreciate everyone who's used the American Amazon store as well as the ones for the UK, Germany, and Canada. You can find all of the Amazon links over at podfeet.com/funwithflags. Canada is not doing much. I'm disappointed in Canada. Germany, though, man, Germany's on fire. All right. Let's see. It's time for Chit Chat audio. Nope. Security Bits audio. Where is it? This should be Security Bits. And I should put that here so that it expires. I love my Hazel rules. One of the reasons I have space. Wait, SM10. What is that? All right, well, this is the right one. One of the reasons I have space on my drive is because I added a rule to move things over to the Drobo when they're old, my audio files. So I used to keep every single audio file I had ever created for the podcast was all local. That was a little bit much. The full size versions too. So that's like 4 gig a week. That was stacking up. Couldn't have had all of them. Anyway, let's see. Security Bits. Here we go.
Is that pumpkin going dark?
Oh, I think it is.
Oh no!
I told you not to put away the candles, dear.
Yeah. Oh, I'll fix
right.
that.
That ain't right. Okay, we'll put you here. Power outage while you're away this weekend. Oh, gosh, I don't know where you'd get one. We bought a couple we really like, Brett, we had a power outage while we were gone, and our Mac stayed up the whole time. So if Steve probably would be the best one to ask for the links, but they worked really well. Actually, he may not give you the affiliate link. Shoot me an email if you're interested. Oh, VO is voiceover, John. That is the audio that the blind get out of a Mac. Let's see. Let's see, I think I need to cut a little bit of you off too. And move you there. Up. Move you. Oh, come on. Is he still playing there? With flags. Well, it's that time of the week. What'd you put in there? 30 bits with Bart Blue Shots. I think it's. I know it's my favorite time of the week. I think a lot of other people feel the same way. How you doing today, Bart?
I am doing fine. It's second day of a week's leave, which is always nice. So
I didn't know you had a week off. Nice.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we have a bank holiday here because it's Halloween on Monday, and I had 4 days leave left, and I went, bank holiday plus 4 days leave equals whole week off.
10 days. Nice. Best.
No, not 10.
10? No, 7, 9.
9. Well, is it? Oh, goodness.
Yeah, 4 buys you 9. That's a good investment right there.
Yeah, I'll take it. Absolutely.
All right, what's on the radar this week?
We have a lot. We have 2 security mediums, or do we call them media? And then we have a bunch of stories. And at the very end, I decided to stick it in at the start of suggested reading. I have some more follow-up on the whole IoT DDoS mess.
Oh, good.
And it's not really new facts. It's more interesting opinion. And that's why I stuck it in suggested reading. I figured this is not actually new developments. It's continuing fallout from the developments we've already spoken about. So that is, to me, suggested reading rather than a new story.
Yeah.
So let's start with our first bit of security medium. Of course, nowadays you have to give a bug a cool name or it will not be considered a real bug. So the bug in question is called Dirty Cow. And the cow is in all capitals.
Okay.
Because the feature... Okay, so this is a bug in the Linux kernel. And the feature that the bug is in is a feature called copy on write, which is abbreviated to cow, hence dirty cow. So copy on write is a really interesting technique for optimization. So if you have something, say it's a file, say it's a chunk of memory, it doesn't really matter what it is. If you have some chunk of data and you tell the kernel you want a copy of it, the optimization is that it's just marked as the fact that there is a copy. But until someone changes the original, there's never an actual copy made.
For anybody watching later,
and then as soon as there is a write, then it gets bifurcated into the original and the copy. So hence it's copy on write. So until you write, we just, I'll give the same thing 2 names and that'll be fine because...
So that saves disk space?
That saves whatever it is you have. So if it's copy on write in RAM, then it saves RAM space. If it's copy on write on a disk, then it's saving disk space. Copy on write shows up all over the place. It's a very common concept. Snapshotting uses copy on write. So there's a feature in Linux now where you can say, take a snapshot of this entire hard disk the way it is now as a backup. And that snapshot takes like milliseconds to create. So you basically have a backup of your entire disk in milliseconds. But it's not really a backup. You just mark it as, I want to take a snapshot in time. And then as soon as there's a write operation, then a copy is made of only what needs to be changed. And that gives you all sorts of really cool features. So that's how ZFS and stuff like that work, all these fancy pants modern file systems that have changes built in. So copy on write is a really cool feature, and it's all over the place in modern operating systems. Now, in the Linux kernel's implementation of copy on write, there's something called a race condition. And a race condition happens if the outcome of some action may be different if 2 pieces of code end up running too close to each other. So if you hammer at it, sometimes the wrong thing will happen. So the way you trigger this vulnerability is basically by hammering away with the copy on write feature until it accidentally writes to the wrong piece of RAM. And in so doing, you end up actually with root privileges.
Oh.
And the scary thing is it takes about 5 seconds to get yourself root privileges is exceptionally reliable exploit.
Ooh.
So, yeah. Okay, so what this is a privilege escalation from any user account to root in about 5 seconds in any version of Linux that has been around for the last 9 years.
Oh my gosh. Why is this security medium? Well, it's not light. We know that.
Right. Well, yeah, but there is a fix, right? So, but no,
Okay.
the reason it's medium is because I can't put it in a bullet point. Right? This does not fit as any one bullet point in the show notes. Therefore, it gets. So
that's pretty much more than half of the servers that run the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's all over the servers. It's going to be all over the IoT. The IoT is going to be full of this this problem. It's all over Android.
Oh, so
because Android runs on the Linux kernel.
Here, look. I'll make fun of Android in just a minute, but let me make fun of
Oh,
IoT
thank
first.
you.
Name,
Why-
now every line
Why,
is pink. Why IoT
when you
devices?
talk.
Are they
Well, that's,
running embedded Linux
I
in
like
general?
pink.
The vast majority of them are. So right. So this is the Linux kernel. So this is the one bit of Linux that everything Linuxy has, right? I mean, these IoT devices may not have the ls command and all the fancy pants stuff you're used to, but they have to have the kernel, because without a kernel, you don't have an operating system. Right. So the kernel is
other embedded operating systems. Like I always get confused. Is it Green Hills or Wind River? One of those is an embedded operating system that's in things like the full duplex telephones everybody uses.
I mean, there's lots of embedded operating systems. So Linux, there is an embedded version of Linux which would have this problem,
Okay.
and then there are embedded operating systems that are not Linux, which will obviously not have this problem.
Okay.
I mean,
okay. All right. Just that it's embedded doesn't mean it's Linux. Got it. Okay. So now
Absolutely,
moving on. Now it's also in the kernel of.
okay,
Android?
hang on. No, before we move
Oh.
too far on, so let's just say, right. So this is a privilege escalation vulnerability. So on the one hand, that means that this is not enough to get you into.
All right. It doesn't appear anybody's paying any attention to this. Boy, I'm going to pump this up. That audio looks pretty low. Let's see, going back to here. I know that it's going to lift itself up, but let's see, pull that one. I know it never grabs the right one either. There you go. Okay. And down to that end. All right. So what did I say the next date was? That blinking's going to really give me a little epileptic seizure here. Oh yeah, for Dan and Nuris, what we're laughing about was Steve turned he put a camping lantern inside the pumpkin, and now he's got it blinking frenetically in the background. So I'm getting this blinking out of the corner of my eye. So that's nice.
That's actually starting to bother me.
Show number. Actually, you guys are probably getting it worse than me. Let's see. So when did I say the next show would be? 600.
2017.
When did I say show 600 would
I think
be?
November 6th is what I recall. I'm not sure if you said that, but that's the last
Let's see.
date
No,
I remember.
November 6th is the one we won't have. So it'll be November 13th.
Oh. So we're just skipping a show?
No, good grief. Don't you pay any attention to the podcast?
Oh, you mean going
Next
to
week, I'm going to have a
601.
show. It'll just come out on Thursday. There won't be a live show. Then a week from,
What are you gonna call
2
that?
weeks from
601?
now. What's that?
You're going to call that 601?
In 2 weeks. No, 601 is in a week. And then you're confusing me. November 13th. Let's see.
So the show that comes out on the 6th will be the 3rd?
There won't be one on the 6th.
Right. So that'll be the 3rd. You said next Thursday?
Sure. Is that what I wrote in the show notes? Let's see, what did I say? Maybe I didn't say. No show on November 6th.
Instead,
I said it was going to come out Thursday. Instead, how to measure the kind of following week is all I said. So November 13th. Okay.
but if you're having a show next week, you should clarify when it will be.
I did. I said it was going to come out next Thursday.
Okay, November 3rd.
They don't need to know. It's just when it comes in their RSS feed, and if if they are subscribed to the the Podfeet Press, I should plug that. All right.
Oh, did you list your Patreons?
You know what?
Or patrons?
Why are you here? Do you even listen?
You did then.
Yes.
I've been away.
No, I did it like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, but I had pumpkin stuff to
Okay.
attend to.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, I'm muting.
Goodbye. Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. Do not forget to send in your dumb questions, comments, and suggestions. You can email me at allison@podfeed.com and follow me on Twitter. Remember, everything good starts with podfeed.com. We've got podfeed.com/Patreon, podfeed.com/Facebook, podfeed.com/Google+, podfeed.com/Amazon. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, except not next week, we won't have a live show until November 13th. How do you get there? You head on over to podfeed.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. There we go. All right, let me check this.
And stay secure.
Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. Do not. All righty. Now let's go find some music. Minus. I think Dan left, by the way. He hasn't been answering, has he? Well, we all do. You know, Landon, you guys can get together and hang out. I mean, there isn't really any reason you need me. I don't appear to be all that important to the plot, right?
Yeah, the chat room's always open, right?
I wish I could show
People
you
can
this.
go in without us being there.
I want to show you something, you guys. The chat room's always open, except when it's down. So
Yeah.
I want to show you guys something. Let's see if you can see this. Whoa.
You okay?
My light just got brighter. That was weird. Okay, so
We just lost you.
yeah, I know. I'm showing something. Okay. So can you guys see me moving this little green thing back and forth? Can you see that
Nothing.
sliding?
It's black.
What's black?
Your video.
Does everybody see black?
I think so. If I see
No,
it,
I'm
I think
broadcasting my screen.
which is black.
Well, that's interesting. I only see your icon. Well, what the heck?
There, it's there. Now we see your screen.
That's weird.
Just maybe a long
Took
delay.
a long leg, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you see this little green thing moving back and forth?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to freeze on me because when Steve answers me, it's going to switch. Okay, there we go. So that little green thing I'm moving back and forth, that's the outro music. So this very top bar is called whole sound. So that's everything from the very beginning of the show to the very end. So this here is Chit Chat Across the Pond. And then way up in the upper right, you can see me ending the show. So I want to drag this to the end, but I want to drag it to the end, but that isn't all on screen. That what I see on screen ends here. That's the edge of it. But watch what happens. I'm going to start sliding. You can see it moving. Now it's getting to the end of my screen. You can see it's to the end on the upper whole sound up above. But watch what happens. I can drag this off screen and my cursor is now way over off the window, but the thing is still moving in the upper bar.
Huh.
See that?
That is odd.
Isn't that neat? So I'm still moving it even though I'm nowhere near that window. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of reflecting a macro view of the world.
Yeah.
Of the world.
Anyway, now here it is lined up, and now I hit plus, and so I can zoom in and see what's going on. All right, and then the last thing I do, and I know it's still on me, but this is more interesting, I think, and I slide it until that lines up with about there, and then I give a little listen here. NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening, and stay subscribed. All right. We are a wrap. It is 5:53 and I can smell the rice cooking. I think we should probably call it. So I will see you guys in 2 weeks. By the way, I mentioned just in chatting there, if you guys don't know about it, and I should plug this more, there's a thing called the Podfeet Press you can sign up for. It's actually in the menu bar at podfeet.com. And anytime something weird goes on, an email would come out on that. In fact, I should probably send a note that says...
Put your face back.
Oh, put my face back.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Put your face back.
Put your face on.
And the lighting got wrecked. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Let me mess with this and bring it back. That's so weird. Oh, okay, good. Now I'm looking at that blinking. All right. Anyway, see you guys in 2 weeks. We're going to call it right now. Bye.
Bye. Gracie.
Happy Halloween.